questions up the back. So it can be any question to any of the 4 speakers this morning so far. So speakers this morning, get ready.
There was a pretty interesting stat saying that almost a quarter of UK FM firms is owned by private equity. And my question, Sundaram, to you is that a bad thing right now that the private equity is owning a bunch of the market? And could that be used as an opportunity versus a flag? I mean, your presentation did bring it out as a flag, but just thinking loud, whether there's an opportunity to consider that as an opportunity versus a flag.
How do you think private equities behave? Yes, because they are, do you think they are going to stay with the same company for more than 5 years, 7 years, 10 years? No, they won't. You know, but sometimes they stay, provided they see value. But I'm talking about a majority. You can be defensive about it, but majority of the PE providers are not going to stay with you more than 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And what that meant is if more and more of our FM contracts is owned by them, that comes with a short-term behavior of what I'm going to do between now and the next 3 years to sweat my assets, to get as much as I can, and then I'm going to wait for the next person to come in who's just going to cream the thing away. Remember, we are contracts-driven, right? We are not like a standalone. So what that meant is the impact is going to be going to the contracts and contracts. So I would take it with a lot more caution. And you're going to see that's why we are moving more and more about generalized way of working. A lot more. I mean, if I remove the name tag from these guys, hardly there will be many difference in the tender proposals, you know, because it's more or less the same. So that's why you can come and back me out as no, that's not true, but we believe, just genuinely believe, because I gave evidence to the NAO when Caroline went bust, right? So primarily it was that behavior, and we are starting to see that behaviors coming back after 15 years, 2008, 9, 10, coming back now 15, and the next cycle of this knee-jerk short-termism is hitting the market again. And that's a cycle. That's all we want to bring attention to. Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot. Assuming that facilities management gets all its data points accurate, as Bhaskar suggested, and we've gone back to basics, I have a really, really simple question. Who owns the data? And if I take data points from loads of different systems right across, say, a building portfolio, and I manipulate that data to find insight, to do something different, who owns that piece of data?
My personal opinion, operations should own the data. If it sits with IT, it just becomes a night amazing graphs, you know, so they'll be absolutely enjoying what that tells them, but 100% the data should sit with operations. So that will be my view. Operations should be all over this, and then when bid teams or marketing teams comes and looks into the data, they know exactly how to translate the data in operational terms. Otherwise, we'll be talking some buzzwords and some random thing personally, but operations will be, unfortunately, operations in the AI implementation we have seen is the last one to be discussed. Hey, what is it you want? You know, it comes from the top down. So my personal opinion, operations should drive it. Operations drive it because you have KPIs already, you have SLAs, you have within your company, you have certain metrics that you work towards to, so you can bring all those things together as one. So operations should drive it. So operations should.
Just a slight addition to that. I totally agree in terms of the use of the data, but I think to your point, it's not so much who owns it, it's what your rights to the data are. And it's not so straightforward, unfortunately. It's not like I own it, I don't own it. Often it's a combination of bits of data. The key challenge is, and this is why the data challenge is so difficult, it's knowing what your contractual rights or your obligations and rights are to that data. So that's the challenge, and that's a whole conversation in its own right. But I think the ownership or not owning it is too simplification. It's the rights to it and what they are.
And just to add to that as well, I mentioned earlier when I talked about the rights and the use of the output is so key. So I mentioned earlier around ensuring that you've got really sort of thorough procurement processes. So using reputable tools is really key for this, because we are relying on sort of the scrutiny of the organisation in drawing on data where they have respected the rights of those data sets. And then in terms of the output of that, how you use that as well. And we need to consider there's sort of other considerations around GDPR potentially, if there's sort of private information. So sort of it's not necessarily about just the rights that are attached to the data sets. It's also how are you going to use the output once you receive it as well.
Okay. Question for Louis. This has come from online. How worried are you about using AI for recruitment and workplace design? Will it send us backwards on access and inclusion, especially for those with long-term conditions and disabilities?
It's a very, very good question. There is a risk of that. I think, we've already seen examples of bias creeping into how these things are designed. And I think the key to avoiding this is ensuring that the people we're trying to empower are part of that process and not being left to be, I guess, out of those decision-making processes. A lot of the work that I do is giving that insight into what disability is like through my own lived experience and through my exposure to my peers. And when we see things go wrong is when they haven't been involved in the decisions that are supposed to be empowering them, they end up creating further barriers. So am I worried? I think it's too late to be worried because AI is here and it's already happening. I think what I'm worried about is there's not enough people like me who are not afraid to ruffle feathers and tell people that they're doing it wrong, and here's how you should be doing it.
Anything else to... Got a question at the back?
Thanks to all the panellists so far and presenters. My question is regarding your thoughts towards what the balance is between regulation and innovation. The EU AI law apparently is riddled with loopholes, and it's been slammed a little bit for stifling innovation in terms of AI adoption. The US is basically getting rid of the concept of ethics in the development and use of AI, and the US is getting slammed for that. The UK is siding with the US. We're not signing the Paris Agreement for responsible and ethical AI development. So there's a for and against here. Obviously, ethics, in my view, should come front and centre. However, there is the kind of argument that focusing too much on regulation in light of the proliferation of all of this tech and the unknowns is going to stifle economic growth. But I just wondered what your thoughts are towards the balance there and what your call to government might be moving forward.
My view is that it's very, very difficult for governments to legislate and control what is very fast moving. And by definition, my experience of that, and I'm old and grey, I've seen it, is they'll just be late and never catch up. So I think my view, my guidance to government, if I had any voice at all, would to be, let it be free, but try to ensure that accountability and responsibility are clear. So whatever comes up, because the cat's out the bag, if China's got unregulated, US will probably be unregulated, you can't shut that in, we can't hide in a bubble. So to me, it's all about responsibility and accountability and ensuring under law that is framed such that if mistakes are going to happen, they will, you can't legislate away or avoid them, that accountability and responsibility is there. And that would be my suggestion.
That also comes with an opportunity for the industry as well to create our own AI governance framework. Right? So if you wait for the government, they'll be looking at a broad brush. We already know where we sit. We sit under accountants and law firms. Right? So whatever they are going to come out with would not be fit for purpose for us. So I think it's absolutely important for us, okay, you as industry is using AI in these things, and you have your own AI governance forum within your organization, and this is how it worked. And that data, that knowledge should be shared, and collectively, this is how we progress. What we haven't seen so far, the data, AI still waits for you because you pump the data, it waits for you for instruction. When the AI agents kick in, which is already happening, you're going to have the AI agents linked up with your engineer or your cleaner telling you, this is what I would do, engineer. So it moves away from waiting for instruction to making decisions. At that point, this governance will be even more important for us to do, because at the moment, it's only the guidance that's come from AI. So you can still choose to act or not, but going forward in the next year or two, you're going to find a lot of AI agents popping up. So these AI agents will not just process your data, they will make decisions. So as an industry, what's our AI governance framework is something which I would bring it up part of our own forum, and we ensure this is how we operate. So that gives a lot of assurance to the industry, to any public sector, to just say we have these certain standards that we go through. Government, I doubt they're going to water down anything, because most of the tax comes from the big tech players, so they will water down as much as you can. Thank you.